Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, a Sun Devil download. Views from the opposition by way of their head coach, Kenny Dillingham. We'll get into it next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started and take advantage of that offer again through September 22nd with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you as we creep closer and closer to a Big 12 opener, and you're doing it on your home stadium as Arizona State. Let me double check here. Yes, conference member Arizona State, Big 12 member Arizona State. Just trying to get used to saying that, is coming to town with an unbeaten record, now 3-0 on the year. And we wanted to get into a bit of a Sun Devil download on today's episode. Going to hear some thoughts from their head coach, Kenny Dillingham, on what he sees so far from Tech's offense, specifically what he knows about Zach Kittley. Of course, a common thread here with the transfer and Jaylen Conyers now being a Red Raider coming from Arizona State. And also a thought on their last go-round when they were here in the great state against Texas State. How many times will we say the word state in this episode? May be a new record. But let's kick it off here with Coach Dillingham talking about their first Big 12 ball game and the mindset as they head out to Lubbock.
Yeah, mindset. This is the first Big 12 game. Like, this will go down in literally history. There's only one game that's a first. And very few times in sports do you get to accomplish a first. Like a real first. Not like first time to have a 100-yard receiver and 2 sacks and 3 like all the crazy first, like a real first. It's the first one, and it'll be remembered forever as Arizona State's first Big 12 game. The crowd there, I'm excited for the tortillas. I've heard there's tortillas that get thrown around. I mean, I'm excited for it because it's a challenge, but it's what college football is supposed to be. We walk out underneath the band is where I was told that our entrance is. A college band on the road, it's going to be loud. Their fans are diehard fans. It's a college town. Like, it's going to be an unbelievable environment for our guys to play in. And I think that's the exciting part about joining the Big 12 is the environments that we play in. And we got to make sure that we clean up the pre-snap penalties that we had on that one drive. Like I said, the majority of the game was good, other than one drive in the football game. And we got to be able to clean those up so we don't put ourselves behind the sticks.
And I think he's right. Most Texas Tech fans probably remember our first Big 12 contest, the first Big 12 contest. Donnie Hart was in bounds. I know you share those sentiments, but something that will go down in the record books as a first for Arizona State. And it's kind of cool to hear him talk about, and I think this is a big difference, certainly from Pac-12 country to what they're going to find in the Big 12 conference. And I've seen many fans remarking about this on Twitter and other places. The environments that they're going to face on the road are going to be quite a different experience as compared to some that they were competing within back in the Pac-12 days.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think that the further you get to the Midwest and further south, the more passion there is for college football. That's just all there is to it. Not that there's not some pockets of that in in or on the West Coast. I've been to, both Arizona schools, been to games at both of them. Obviously, we're going to Tucson here in a couple of weeks, and I'll relive that. But some of the Big 12 environments, and I'd like to think that what you can provide as a home field environment in Lubbock when you're rolling or when you feel good about things is pretty stout compared to others in the Big 12. I like Kenny Dillingham, man. After listening to a lot of what he's had to say, this is a young guy. He's 34 years old, but he is somebody that had an impossible task last year. And I think that, he's got them very confident and rolling right now. And based on expectations, they're one of the bright big stories or bright spots in the entire league. I mean, I think Arizona State and BYU, were I don't want to say left for dead, but they were like an afterthought before this thing even started. And they're both sitting there at 3-0, and I know you are one school that would love to trade places with them being at 3-0, but that's not what happened. But it's still just very surreal that Arizona State is a conference member. You've been in this league it's close to 30 years old. Now it's version 4.0 or 5.0 to this point when you start factoring all the departures and additions and throughout the years. But you're going on about close to 30 years in this deal, and it's just weird. Arizona State comes in, and the tournament starts this weekend. These mean more. They just do. Not that the non-conference games don't mean anything. They do. But this is, if you want to win a conference, if you want to get to Arlington and play for a conference, if you want to get to the playoff, this is where you need to make your hay. And I knew that a lot of the players yesterday or 2 days ago, earlier in the week, whenever they did media availability, they all talked about Joey had the team meeting on Sunday, and he kind of set the tone and was like, okay, like detail-oriented. Be where your feet are. A lot of the things you start and it's hard for some of these younger guys that haven't been through it before. And it's up to the older ones to go, okay, boys, it's different now. Like we can maybe let a few things slide or whatever it was. Cannot anymore. This counts.
Yeah, and I was really interested to hear him talk about their most recent outing again back here in Texas as they took on Texas State. Was a very entertaining ball game, and it seems like Texas State is certainly going to have a pulse as a program this year as they continue their season. Arizona State does not get off to a great start, but they do wind up with a win. But it really sounded like he was not very pleased with the way that he played. He put a lot of that on himself and his coaching staff's shoulders. But let's take another listen to Kenny Dillingham talking about their most recent win against the Bobcats. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and America's #1 sportsbook is shaking it up to kick off football season with an offer a football fan can't afford to miss. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. And, of course, you can cancel at any time. Again, from right now through September 22nd, bet $5 and take advantage of a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Today's episode brought to you by Roy. Red Raider fans, have you heard about Roy? It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fan, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape the roster, retain talent, and even keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. As you all know, NIL has changed the game for athletes, and Roy is changing the NIL game for fans. And here's why Roy is different. It directly supports the players. Roy allows fans to directly back their favorite college athletes. And with Roy, fans can play a key role in shaping the future of their favorite teams while athletes maximize their NIL potential. Also, even better for you, there's no risk. That's right. Fans' contributions are securely held and are only distributed if the athlete makes the decision that aligns with the fan's support. If not, the money is returned to the fan. So download Roy today for iOS or Android and enter our referral code LOCKEDON, and you're going to automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Get the Roy app for iOS or Android and start making an impact on your favorite team today. And use our referral code LOCKEDON for an opportunity to win $5,000 cash money. Visit joinroy.com for more details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with Roy. Let's take another listen to Kenny Dillingham talking about their most recent win against the Bobcats.
That team last week, I thought, was the best team that we'd faced up to that point, right? They were really good up front. You know, they ran to the ball harder than we did throughout the football game, which is what showed up on tape. And it was the first team that I thought played harder than us at times. And I think it's more the just the honesty with your guys, and they know the truth. So you just got to tell them the truth, and hey, you're going to get opportunities, great, go take them. But what does that have to do with the fact that if you want more opportunities, we got to continue to play well, and those opportunities that you're getting have no effect on if we continue to play well. And like I said, I thought we played a bad game. I thought I coached a bad game. I thought I put our guys in bad positions to be successful, especially early in the game. We weren't ready to play. Then we had 4 penalties on one drive, which is unacceptable. We only had 2 penalties in the first 3 quarters of the game, and we have 4 on a backed up drive where we're driving the field. To have 4 penalties and then have an illegal man in the backfield on a punt when we pin them inside the 1, when statistically it's a less than 2% chance that you drive from inside the 1-yard line to score points in a tie game. That could have been one of the most catastrophic, could have been a game-losing penalty, just not lining up on the ball. And I got to get all that stuff cleaned up.
I thought that was really interesting, especially because it was on the road, and it sounded like, as he kind of discussed there, they were doing some things that were, I don't know, in the category of self-inflicted wound. So rooting for some more of those things to continue, obviously, here in the 806 this weekend.
What I hear is a coach there that's got a 3-0 team, and he's wanting to make sure they don't get caught up into feeling too good about themselves. He's trying to he's this is what you want. You want to win and then have plenty to poke at, plenty to coach up, and plenty that's really the ideal scenario every week if you can get it. Although I liked last week's scenario for the Red Raiders too. That was a lot of fun, where you just go, you know what, at the half, hey man, everybody just go home. Let's just run the clock and get out of here. Yeah. But he's trying to me keep some new pieces and a younger football team. I think trying to keep them, in check and all that stuff. But it is weird that they are coming in back-to-back weeks to the state of Texas. They've had a little extra rest. They were obviously at home, late Thursday night, a week ago, whatever it was. And so they've got a couple of extra days, whereas you played on Saturday. But I thought that's a pretty good win. And I don't disagree with his premise in that I do think Texas State is the best team that they've played. I think Mississippi State's, either them or Vanderbilt, are the worst in the SEC. Wyoming, folks, I guess play them in even number years and not odd number years. I don't know, but Wyoming is just the wheels have come off. But they are, I think Arizona State should feel pretty good about themselves, because you know what ultimately they did? Because they got down in this game. Ultimately what they did, though, found a way. Wasn't pretty. They just figured it out, and they found a way. Because Scatterboo, only just over 60 yards rushing in this game. And I guarantee you, if I tell you that before the game, and I tell most Arizona State fans, you're like, hey man, he's going to be held to just over 60 yards. They're probably going, ooh, I don't like the results here. But that's where Sam Leavitt really did his thing and made the plays that counted and whatnot. So this be a tough nut to crack on Saturday for the Red Raiders.
Yeah, no doubt. And it was kind of interesting. We were talking about this with some of our Matador Mob insiders, which you can become one if you'd like to. Have a direct line to Chris and myself. And some of the stats that we were talking about this week and we're sharing with those viewers and listeners were kind of interesting to see that really on both sides of the football, you had Sun Devil offense that was sort of heading the wrong way and maybe coinciding, obviously, with the competition that they were facing, but has been less and less and less and harder to come by week to week to week. And then as far as what opposing offenses were able to do, 2.3 yards per play in week 1, 5.3 yards per play the last 2 weeks. The total yardage, which is not everything, can be kind of misleading, but 118 in week 1, 292 in week 2, and then 400 yards for Texas State there in week 3. Again, I think a lot of that coincides with the competition level increasing. But I tell you what, Chris, I think that for the most part, if you came into this season with expectations for your team, like I would assume a lot of Arizona State fans came into this year, probably skeptical of what you were going to be. You go on the road and take on a team like Texas State and you just figure out a way to win. I'm not really caring what it looked like, to be honest. Now, the head coach is going to feel a little bit differently about that. But, finding a way to do that with, again, a team that's trying to earn some credibility this year, I was impressed just by the way that they were able to do it. And not just do it, but, again, you get off to the start that was not ideal, and you still find a way to claw your way back and get a road win. I thought it was impressive. I got to watch a lot of that game as they were there in San Marcos, and I thought there was some toughness there for Arizona State, certainly, that it's going to have to be accounted for on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, and there's these teams every year that just get misdiagnosed. I mean, here's the crazy thing. You know what their win total was the last 2 years? They had 3 wins in each of the last 2 years. They've matched it through 3 games already.
Right.
Vegas had them as a over under at 4.5 season win total. They've already hit 3, and that's only games that they've played. Is just the 3. So to say that they are exceeding what most would have thought is an understatement. But I ultimately, what will they be? I think that a lot of people feel like, okay, at minimum, this is a bowl team, and he's, Coach Dillingham's 34 years old, as I mentioned. He's been an OC at Auburn, Florida State, I think Memphis. I think he spent some time at Oregon, which is where he's originally from. He's been a lot of different places, and it was an interesting hire because he's trying to clean up a lot of what Herm Edwards, that mess that he took over, which was a disaster of an experiment. And it may take a bit, but I'll just be interested to see kind of, because the biggest thing I think for Texas Tech is on Saturday, play from with a lead, play when you're ahead, and let's see if they can do that again and come back from behind, because I just don't know if you can do that. And this crowd will be different than what the Sun Devils just faced. And I don't know about you, but if you're like, I'm trying to think, it's like a popularity contest. For some reason, Arizona State doesn't bother me near as much as Arizona does. I don't know why. I just, in my interactions, everybody seems kind enough, but I just don't, I guess I dislike Arizona State less, or did I phrase that correctly, than I do Arizona for whatever reason. And I'm just thankful that Kalen Balazs has graduated, because I saw that movie and I hated the ending. And it was on rinse and repeat, like for a 3-hour night, one long weekend. Back in, what was that, like 17, 16, something like that. Not even Pat Mahomes, the great Pat Mahomes, could do anything about the Kalen Balazs show that night.
Yeah, Pat wasn't playing linebacker, unfortunately. That's a name I'll never forget. And I guess, I don't know, for the most part, I would describe my outlook as generally apathetic towards either of these programs. You do have some history with Arizona, a lot more than you have with Arizona State, even though you shared a conference with both. But that's pretty much ancient history. So from a fan fervor standpoint, I'm fairly apathetic. But you got to know this. I'm looking for beef. I'm looking for new beef. We're looking to cook something up in this new iteration of the Big 12 Conference, because you have lost a lot of beef as a Texas Tech fan over the last decade, with Aggies and Longhorns leaving. And, of course, not quite so easy to replace with, say, a Baylor or a Texas Christian, because you can fit, all the people that care about those programs in one of the teacups at Disney World, and I think just one. So you really got to have it reciprocated. I don't know if you can cook something up here. There's not like a ton of regional proximity. I guess within the grand scheme of things, as far as the Big 12, there is some regional proximity, but it takes like really great competition, I think, to cook up some of those things year after year after year after year. So I'm open to it, but I can't say that I have a general feeling for either one of them, just from a fan standpoint. And I really hadn't interacted much. We did take a loss in Tucson not too long ago and did not get a return visit from the Wildcats, as was supposed to happen. As you mentioned, the trip to Tempe, where the Red Raiders took a loss, then you were able to exercise that demon as they come back to Lubbock and you get a win against Arizona State. But I'm open to cooking up some drama here. Anybody want to get mad at one another? I'll get mad with you. Sign up.
I am curious what kind of mysterious powers that a Sun Devil possesses. I don't really know. They do the fork thing, forks right up or whatever. I will just tell you, having been to their lovely city several times, I would have failed out of Arizona State had I attended, because Sun and Devil, there's a lot going on there. I think that's well played on their mascot name, because there is, and I think it's Mill Avenue. yeah, like there's a lot going on, and it's 2 hours from Vegas. The sun never sets really, and it's impressive.
You're just talking about the academic rigors, right? The curriculum.
Yes,
Incredibly challenging.
It's all just very impressive. No, Tempe's basically just like this. It's just an extension of Phoenix. It's like it's one of those weird deals where you're just not real sure really when you leave Phoenix and you're in Tempe, although the street sign says you're in Tempe. So, and don't forget, this is where one of the largest bowl game of their stadium was one of the largest bowl game comebacks in the history of the sport. Whenever you
right.
got Glenn Mason fired at the University of Minnesota one night when you were down, I don't know, 38 to -17, it felt like. I don't know. And then you decided to come back and win, but that was at Arizona State Stadium too. But yeah, this whole thing is just like in Cincinnati in here next week.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there. Luke Fickell used to coach there. I mean, they were in the playoff at AT&T Stadium, I think, actually a few years ago. But it's just the new world that we're in. But
that's right.
I'm excited about it, and you're right. If people want to poke, I guess we can poke back, and we'll just kind of see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. The hills are plentiful in Tempe on the campus of Arizona State University, and not everything's flat in Lubbock either. After all, so hope everyone's enjoying the scenery between these two programs whenever they get together in the 806 or out in Arizona. Want to wrap up our conversation today, Chris, specifically on the offensive side of the football for Texas Tech, and take another listen to a couple of thoughts from Kenny Dillingham. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Never sweat buying tickets to your favorite event again with Gametime. It's always a breeze using the Gametime app where you're going to find the best last-minute deals, and I love being able to scout out a view from any seat before pulling the trigger. Of course, you're always doing it at the lowest price guaranteed. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means you can finish off that final brat, that final beer at your own pace at the tailgate, because Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. Gametime gives you the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets, but not just fast, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use our promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. Want to wrap up our conversation today, Chris, specifically on the offensive side of the football for Texas Tech, and take another listen to a couple of thoughts from Kenny Dillingham. One I thought was really interesting as it relates to what he has seen from Texas Tech's offense and a bit of a history with their offensive coordinator, Zach Kittley.
Score a lot. I mean, that stands out. I mean, I know that's a stupid answer, but like they score a lot. They're very creative. This coordinator, it's funny, I reached out to him. He was a D1AA coordinator before he went to Western Kentucky. And when he was a D1AA coordinator before he got hired at Western Kentucky, he had one of the top offenses in the country. And I used to reach out to all the younger dudes who were having success, and I randomly reached out to him on Twitter like, I'm going to watch your stuff just because you're scoring a lot. Like, so I want to watch it. And then, a month later, he goes to Western Kentucky. They hire the running backs coach that was working with us at Florida State, who I then later hired at Oregon, Carlos Lachlan. So there's a little bit of connection there, and I have a lot of respect for what he does offensively, and he knows how to score. He's really creative. You never see the same thing in back-to-back games, which I think is a testament to him in terms of changing up the pictures. He constantly changes up the pictures. So whatever you show your guys, you're probably not going to see on game day. Different formation, different motion, different shift. You may see the same plays, but you're not going to see the same physical, like copy-paste picture from game to game, and I think that's what makes them successful.
I thought that was really interesting to consider, the versatility apparently that he's seeing from Texas Tech's offense, and maybe something that's sort of lost on a Red Raider fan here or there. I think really interesting to consider, Chris, but also to me kind of sounds like quite the responsibility for the Red Raiders themselves to be so versatile from week to week and still try to be able to find success.
Yeah, and I know there was a lot of chatter and criticism and just talk in general about it 2 weeks ago, the screen stuff, but it was a lot of the ninja stuff that Mike Leach had run, and you're putting offensive linemen out there on the darn near sideline, and you're just trying to, and there were several plays run out of that. You didn't see any of that this week. And then this week, it's this diamond formation that's in the backfield where the tight ends are loaded up, and you scored, I think, touchdowns on 3 different plays out of that formation via the run game.
Yeah, baby.
You won't see that, I don't think, this week. And,
what?
And yeah, I mean, you'll continue to tweak and be creative and use your pieces. And what Kenny Dillingham is saying is, because, see, it changes up the rules on the defenders. You may be running the exact same play that you're running, but it just the gaps are different, the alignment's different, the formation's different. Maybe there's just all these dynamics, but it's essentially the same play. This is the cat and mouse game that you play. And that's why, Tim DeRuiter earlier in the week, he's like, Arizona State last year, maybe they just got in the film room and said, let's just experiment the rest of the year. We can't go to a bowl game. Screw it. Let's put everything on tape and make coaches for the next year drive them crazy. So that's where you're at, because they just showed everything. But there's and what you're seeing from Zach is that's a lot of this is Cliff Kingsbury. This is just kind of how he rolled. Where what was it? Big World, Little People, or what was the play? I mean, you got all these different dynamics and just different things. But I appreciate Kenny Dillingham for understanding, and he's known Zach, I guess since the Texas Tech stuff or the HBU stuff, but he's followed it. But he knows he's going to get something different this week for sure.
Okay, fine. Let them line up a little bit differently, but I got pretty attached to that 3-back set, double tight ends in the backfield around Baron Morton and Taj Brooks. So don't starve me of that. I'd love to see that again. I got kind of accustomed to that, and like you said, 3 touchdowns out of that 3 times.
And maybe if you do it this time, maybe there's like a fake handoff, you throwing it. Maybe
Gotcha.
you because people like practice it, so there'll be some variations to
it. All the things that go into trying to keep the opposing defense on their heels. Quite interesting from week to week, and a heck of a challenge, and a challenge that only grows, obviously, as we get into conference play. Before we get out of here, we have got to spend some time on the common thread most recently between these two programs, and that was a transfer in the form of tight end Jaylen Conyers, who was a Sun Devil, now a Red Raider, and has had a great start to this season for Texas Tech. Certainly has been an impactful player, and Coach Dillingham also gave us some thoughts on Mr. Conyers.
I thought somebody was going to ask me about Jaylen, just because, that Jaylen was, and I'll answer the question, but Jaylen was awesome Sun Devil here. I mean, he had his own podcast here. He was one of the most liked people in our program. I brought him to media days as a captain here. We went to Vegas together here. We took him to a show in Vegas during media days and went to dinner. Like, I had such a good relationship with Jaylen. I'm glad to see his success. He's had a really good first 3 games. He's playing the Wildcat there. He's playing wide out. He's playing tight end. He's in the backfield as the second running back. He's back really close to home, where his family and his mom, who he's really close to, can watch him. He's with a coach who I respect and a coach who I know will take care of him. So couldn't be happier for him and what's happened for him in the first 3 games. Hopefully there's one bad game in there, maybe week 4. That would be the goal, right? But other than that, I wish him nothing but the best, and I just want to see him succeed.
We want him to see. We want you to see him succeed also, particularly in week 4. But man, what feels like a very lucky spot to be in as a Tech fan, Chris. Conyers is one of those new additions on the list that has been, I think, as advertised, and I almost feel like we've only kind of scratched the surface, maybe with the ways that Conyers can impact a game for Tech.
Yeah, and this is the way this stuff is supposed to work. I appreciate everybody being above board with this deal. I mean, I think it tells you a lot about the player that Jaylen Conyers was, when a lot of the Arizona State folks, and I've talked to some of them or been on some of their podcasts, and said, man, nobody wanted him to leave. And that's when like maybe you got something really good, is when the other folks were like, please don't leave, Yeah. But I appreciate Coach Dillingham, and I obviously Coach McGuire, with that back and forth, just mutual respect. And you can't change where home is. That's ultimately the deal here. You can't change where home is. And been happy for Jaylen. He's been smiling since he walked in here. Missed spring football, so you weren't real sure what you were getting. But he's really a fascinating utility player. And the only negative is you're just going to get a glimpse of it before he has to walk out the door and exhaust his eligibility. Because this would have been a lot of fun if, boy, you got a 2 or 3 year window of somebody like him and all the things that he can do for you. He's a gadget, play caller's dream because, as you heard, Wildcat, sure. And he can throw it. He can throw it too. He's just got that athleticism. You want to wildcat him. You want to put him back in the backfield as a blocker and load it up, or you just want to run him, in a shallow cross and let him catch a touchdown. I mean, all the above. I mean, it's a fun piece to utilize if you're Zach Kitley, but it's really fun for a kid like this to kind of come back and, without trying to be corny here, kind of live out his dream, because this is where he always wanted to go. I just hated that it took so long to get to this point, but at least we're getting it as opposed to never getting to see him live out his dream.
Yeah, no doubt. And hopefully we're going to see more of that coming up on Saturday afternoon. We got one more go round this week, and then it's on to kickoff 2:30 from Jones Stadium. So looking forward to one more round with you, Chris. Appreciate everybody being out there, particularly those everydayers who are always mixing it up in the YouTube comments or wherever you may be. And of course, another reminder, the Matador Mob. Hit the QR code if you're watching on YouTube, or check out the link there in the show notes or on our Twitter page at Locked On Tech. The conversation is always off and running 24/7. So thanks to those who have taken advantage of that opportunity so far. Chris, enjoyed it as always, man, and we'll see you for the next round.
Guns up. Appreciate it. Talk to you mañana. Can't wait.
Right.
Yes,
couple
sir.
more sleeps, and then it's on to Big 12 play. Again, thanks for being out there as always. For Chris, I'm Casey, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.